America, America. My name is Osei-Frimpong. Today I'm going to talk about Tyler Robinson's situation as either a spook, that means a spy set up to do a thing, because I'm going to stipulate that he actually pulled the trigger. I'm going to assume that he actually made the shot and killed Charlie Kirk. Or is he just a kook that was radicalized by the internet? And how somehow this always works out for Israel's benefit. It's amazing how that works out. But yet, the big winner is Bibi out of all of this. And so first, like I said, I'm going to make the case that Tyler Robinson is a spook that was activated, or I'm going to make the case that he was a kook that was radicalized, not by his one semester at Utah State, but by the internet, by parents who didn't monitor his screen time too well, and they took him to too many gun shows. You can say, oh no, you can't blame the parents. His parents tried the best they could. Well, you know, if my kids end up assassinating a political pundit, blame me. Blame me. And if I'm the one who taught them how to shoot and took them to gun shows, there was a problem in the education of my child, because I obviously did not teach them not to shoot random pundits in America. They are confused. I would feel bad if I were his pastor. I would feel bad, you know, but yet, I would still not turn my kid in. I just don't think that's my job necessarily. I feel some sort of way about the parent turning the kid in. Well, this might be another reason why maybe they're not the greatest parents, because if they make that kind of decision, like that's just, I feel like it's someone else's place. I would not turn my kid. I would not turn my kid in. Yeah, but like I said, but if you, if my kid shoots someone, go ahead and blame me. I feel very comfortable blaming me. So we have a few problems here. Let me go with the spook. The spook case first. That Tyler Robinson was some sort of operative for the deep state. His family might even be in cahoots with it, but he was radicalized and pointed at Charlie Kirk as a matter of his job or his mission, right? So if you don't know about me, I went to high school in a little LDS Mormon enclave in Orange County, California. It's there were just a lot of Mormons, so I'm very comfortable around the Mormons. I know I might not look like or sound like a guy who's very comfortable around the Mormons, but I'm very comfortable around the Mormons. And one thing you might not know that might get me cred: they play basketball. They play basketball better than you think. There are gyms in their churches, and they take basketball and theater, but mostly basketball. They take basketball very seriously. Basketball and Ty Detmer. But no, so like that's, if you know, you know. Jimmer Frederick, it was not an anomaly. So there's a slightly racist religion because it has slightly racist origins. Like black people with children in the church on through the civil rights movement. That means they could never actually attain priesthood or get any of the honors of adults. They were never actually considered adults who would go to the highest heavens and hold families and authority in that way. Not until 1978. That means it made it all the way through the civil rights movement and deep into the 70s. I was born in 77. So it made it all the way through there before they recognized black people as whole people. So it is a whole white supremacist religion, and that's where the money is. Now they have temples in Africa, and they have it's growing places because they control all the money, and it turns out when you can feed people, they'll listen to your good word. They also have an entire private welfare system. That's fodder for another podcast. So this kid grew up in a Mormon family in the middle of Utah and did very well in school. He did very well in school. He got a 34 on the ACT, got a perfect on the reading section of the ACT. Yet he does not leave a manifesto. Got a perfect on the reading section of the ACT, does not lead a manifesto. Ends up at a state college. I don't know why he doesn't go to the Y or even the U. I don't know. 34 is pretty high. But makes it one semester at Utah State and then mysteriously disappears. And starts engineering. Now, look, I grew up with a lot of Mormons, and they say a lot of them work in government right now. Like, because they sail through background checks. Think about it. They don't drink, they don't smoke. It's like God, country, all that thing. And you don't have to worry about honey traps because they strict kind of moral sentiments and sensibilities. The word of wisdom is strong and keeps them kind of straight and narrow. So they sail through it's sailed right through the background check, and they work for the state. So if I am recruiting a deep state asset and I look at 19-year-old, maybe not 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, but I look at 19-year-old Tyler Robinson, I think he is perfect, right? So, and all of this would happen in a way that like normal people like myself wouldn't know. But maybe they yoinked him and kind of had them, the deep state had him in their sway or under their aegis, their protection, and for a while. That's possible. I think this is all possible. He's probably a kook, but if he were a spook, he would be the right kind of candidate for this kind of spook. Like, he has the right pedigree and the sensibility to be this kind of spook. He's probably an Eagle Scout. Like, it's funny because I bet you the biggest prayer in Utah this morning when they found out who the kid wasn't that they were worried, they were praying for Charlie Kirk's family. They were probably praying that Tyler Robinson didn't have a temple recommend, that he wasn't in good standing with the church. Because that way the LDS can kind of disavow themselves of him. But his family was in good standing, even if Tyler, had walked away. But maybe he was the one who didn't. Or maybe that was part of his training or his usefulness, right? So here we have a Mormon kid who could shoot, smart, can follow arguments, but yet wrote memes and internet slang on his bullets and didn't leave an actual manifesto. So if it's the case that Charlie Kirk was serious about transitioning to like an American first that did not cede all of our authority to Israel and let Israel and Netanyahu dictate American policy, if he was serious about that, he would be a big threat to Israel. Because I've never been impressed with Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk's kind of expresses an American zeitgeist, but he's not a particularly deep man. He just is where America is at. And America is like that kind of racist, right-wing guy. Like, your average plumber is probably more racist than Charlie Kirk. And Charlie Kirk was a whole racist. So I just think that he didn't create a movement. He just expressed it. And if he started expressing anti-Zionists or not complete capitulation to Zionism for the Christian Zionists, who are a non-negligible number of Americans, that causes problems for Israel's plan. It causes problems for the bipartisan consensus, which decided that Israel runs American policy. So that, yeah, Charlie Kirk didn't create a movement. He focused it. And he focused it at universities. And, Charlie Kirk got me on the professor's watch list. So I have no love lost for Charlie Kirk. I just don't think he should have died. Like, I don't think his assassination was either politically useful or just. I think he was just an American I disagree with. And those people get to live, right? So if Charlie Kirk becomes an anti-Zionist or even complicates his Christian Zionism, that becomes an actual substantive problem for Israel, because he actually has the ear of so many impressionable young conservative Americans and would be on the right side of the argument. If you can't be American first and then cede your foreign power to your authority to a foreign nation. Right. So that becomes a problem for Israel, and you know how Israel solves its problems. And, they'll just lie up and down around it. So if he was somehow activated either in cahoots with the United States government or directly with the Mossad, we wouldn't know about it, but he would be the kind of guy that you would activate. Like, he would have the right pedigree. Lenberg Residential says, Mormons believe that God made black skin as a curse or a punishment. Yeah, just a lesser than children in the eyes of God. Now, that was all taken aback. That was all revealed to be untrue, or maybe we've graduated, we've evolved. In 1978, there was a proclamation, a revelation by the prophet says, turns out black people are whole people. 1978, that is, a decade after the Civil Rights Movement. And yeah, it's just not that long ago. I was born in 77. So, the white supremacy within, and white nationalism and white supremacy within the Mormon church is real. And it's not something that can casually be scrubbed off. I'd say that growing up with no small number of hardcore Mormon white supremacists and softcore Mormon white supremacists. I say that growing up with a good number, right? So if he is radicalized, it would be a good time to take him. The guy got a near perfect score on the ACT, a perfect score on the writing, did not leave a manifesto, weird, and he could make the shot, is the kind of guy who would follow the kind of orders the deep state would like, was in the right kind of family. Like, if you snap him up at 19, this is the guy you snap up. So that would be the argument he was Kook. And also, you make him a Groyper, you make him a Nick Fuentes, because I find Nick Fuentes much more of a thorny problem than Charlie Kirk. I don't think about Charlie Kirk or Matt Walsh or Timothy Poole. I don't take any of those guys seriously because they're just kind of grifters who aren't particularly bright or particularly deep. Fuentes is a different animal. Fuentes is a different animal because he's right about so many things that other people don't get. He's right that liberalism screws up the families. He's right that institutions are important and meaningful, and traditions are not so much traditions, but institutions are meaningful, and liberals are casual about institutions. And he just adds a kind of right Hegelian racism to it all. So he goes one step too far. But he's not a grifter, and he's not going to get caught in a honeypot. So Fuentes is a problem. Fuentes is a problem because he's a quality of American First, and America First will win. But I hope it's American First that I can redefine as America, as realizing the principles of self-governance and the conditions of realizing principles of self-governance. Which means we need to secure people good jobs and, promote property ownership and assets. And, we should support families. And you can't supplant families with government. You need strong families. So you need policies that support strong families. And I like nuclear families because, not for the reasons of tradition, but nuclear families because that's an emancipation from the sway of the richest uncle or aunt in town, right? I don't like clan governance. I think people should be able to decide how they want to do with their family as a unit. And that's a quality of freedom that we should support as American. So I want to develop an America First that respects borders, because borders are important, because we get to decide who has authority in this nation. And that secures people good jobs and, polices borders and understands America is about self-governance. And we get to decide who we have to, what kind of nation we are, but we need general conditions in order for that to be the priority. So Fuentes is an American force first that upholds a quality of colonialism and racism that I don't abide. I'm an American first that upholds, the realization of self-governance and the conditions, even the more muscular government conditions you need in order to secure self-governance. Right. So Nick Fuentes is actually right because his critiques of Israel are right. His critiques of the right are right. That they're all just kind of like midwit grifters. Like he's right about that. And he's right about Israel deciding American foreign policy. And, he's right about liberals screwing up institutions. He's just like, he takes a kind of biological essentialist view to these, and even traditional essentialist view to these issues that is wrong. But America First will win in some guys. Hopefully it's my guys. It's a left Hegelian. He is a right Hegelian. So Nick Fuentes is a problem for Israel. So what you do is and he will radicalize young people. Nick Fuentes isn't like Charlie Kirk or Andrew Tate. It's not a flash in the pan, or Tim Pool. He's not a flash in the pan grifter. He will actually radicalize young people. If Nick Fuentes, the bigger the microphone Nick Fuentes gets, the more powerful Nick Fuentes will get, because he is deeper than the alternative. Because the alternative is not particularly deep. So you're only going to counter if, like Nick Fuentes. I did a video months ago about Nick Fuentes being inevitable. So unless you have a right America First ideology, like just look for Nick Fuentes gaining more and more power. You need a left that actually, can talk about families. You need a left that can talk about even religion. You need a left that can talk about morality. You need a left that can talk about, the need for safety and order, right? So Fuentes is much more dangerous for Israel than Charlie Kirk, or than like Fuentes is a problem. Fuentes is a problem. Charlie Kirk moving over would be a problem. Fuentes is another problem. So now Bibi gets to feed two birds with one seed by having a follower of Nick shoot, an apparent follower of Nick Fuentes shoot Charlie Kirk. You delegitimize not only Fuentes, you delegitimize alternative media in a way. Because you have to understand, Bibi and Israel, they own both parties and they own mainstream media. So if you delegitimize the internet media in general, you're winning. You're winning if you're Israel. Because you own all the companies. You own all the company Democrats. Right? So if you tar Nick Fuentes, who is only growing in power as a matter of right, you like everyone who is in the center right Shapiro Charlie Kirk land is proto-Goiper. Like, because he's just deeper than the guys. He's deeper than a Tim Pool. So Israel is actually, Nick Fuentes getting power is a problem for Israel. Charlie Kirk going anti-genocide, or even entertaining anti-genocide, because you have to understand, Zionists don't like people on the fence. They don't like you entertaining people who are like, well, we shouldn't really support Israel. Even if even if you are completely indifferent to Palestinian lives and you're American first, you just don't care enough to give Israel bombs. Like, we shouldn't be implicated in that, right? So all of the people are proto Fuentes. So with this play where a Groiper or a Nick Fuentes guy shoots Charlie Kirk, You get rid of Charlie Kirk's possible move over to an anti-genocide Charlie Kirk and that kind of American first, and you tar Nick Fuentes as he grows ascendant in power, because Nick Fuentes does not like Israel. He doesn't like Jews. So Jane Delore says, not all Zionists like Netanyahu or hate all Palestinians. Yeah, but the problem is, like, Zionism, and I think the same of a two-state solution, is garbage, right? There is no anti-genocide Zionism. It's at most you're an apartheid Zionist. If your problem was, if you were okay with Israel like on October 6th, you are the problem. If you're okay with Israel's relationship with America on October 6th, you are the problem. So even if you're like an anti-BB Zionist, you're still like garbage. You're just in denial about how trash you are. All right, so so the case for Tyler Robinson being a spook is that Israel actually comes out in a stronger position with the murder of Charlie Kirk and the tarring of Nick Fuentes. And Israel has a lot at stake in the young, white, male, conservative brand. So if it could keep it under control of Fox and under control of the Tim Pools, under control of like people who don't even have the integrity of Charlie Kirk, who I've never been impressed with Kirk, like at all. But he might not be as easily bought as a Tim Pool or like some of these the Nelk boys or whatever. Right. So that's the case for why Tyler Robinson might be a spook, because if you look at him 0 to 19, he is the exact kind of guy that Deep State brings in. He's a bright rule follower who knows how to shoot guns. Like that's who the CIA likes. That's who the FBI likes. So now the argument for him being a kook. A lot of LDS are white supremacists. They're like nice, polite white supremacists, but the whole religion is kind of like low grade, like either explicit or implicit white supremacy, and like you're a proto-white nationalist just by growing up in the water of the LDS religion. Proto. There are a lot of good Mormons who are not white supremacists, but when you find out that Mormons become white supremacists and racial nationalists, you can't really be that surprised. You can't really be that surprised. They're in an America that works with guns and saying yes to authority, and a religion that had black people, that was very comfortable with the degradation of black people up until 1978. And now they're just only sort of comfortable with it. And forget the traditional gender roles, which also has like racial tinges to it. So he's already a third of the way there. And I say this growing up with no small number of Mormon white supremacists. They all have good jobs and, bigger bank accounts than I do. And one of them founded chess.com, Eric Alabest. I'll name names. Eric Alabest, founder of chess.com, huge white supremacist. When I knew him in high school, and yeah, and but like he wasn't anomalous. Like it comes in the religion. So the fact that he could get radicalized by a guy like Fuentes makes sense, right? Because Eric Alabest, like I said, founder of chess.com, he was the first person I think I heard talk about Rush Limbaugh back in the late 80s, right? So the idea that, some Mormon guy with slightly inattentive parents were allowed him to be radicalized by the Reddit community, and Fuentes and all of that against Charlie Kirk, that is possible. Like one of the geniuses of one of the like insights of Fuentes is he picks fights on the right, and that just strengthens the movement because none of these guys are going to vote for a Democrat. But if you pick fights on the right, you just have a bigger tent within your like the right. It actually expands the right. All right. So there are no small number of people who are going to be radicalized by Nick Fuentes because he is much deeper than the other cast of characters, including the Ben Shapiros and Charlie Kirks and Tim Pools and all of that. Like he's actually, he's actually an ideological problem. Do not assassinate Nick Fuentes. No, you need a left Hegelian to actually just outduel him in an appropriate way. So the idea that this guy was a kook makes sense. He radicalized by the internet. One of his friends from high school said he was always on Reddit. He was just a Reddit kid. So he was a smart Reddit kid and who knew how to shoot. Right? Recycling guy says, nobody knows who Fuentes is. Go to your local gas pump. Yeah, the problem is he's the kind of guy who knows who Nick Fuentes is. Tyler Robinson, even if he's a spook and not a kook, knows who Nick Fuentes is. Right? So nobody knows who Nick Fuentes is except the people who know. And that community, that vaguely white supremacist LDS community, these are the same people who knew who Rush Limbaugh was in the 80s. They know who Nick Fuentes is. Right. And I think the gropers are going to have legs because it's ideologically deeper than the kind of half grifter that was Charlie Kirk or Crowder or even Candace Owens. These are not as serious as like ideological people. Matt Walsh. These are not serious people in a way that we should be threatened as Americans. In the way that Nick Fuentes is actually a guy you need to contest. CM says every political Reddit addict knows Nick. Right. And he's only going to get more popular because he's actually deeper and good. You can listen to Nick Fuentes and hear arguments you haven't heard. Will there be a left Hegelian who can outduel Nick? Hopefully one of you. I'll give you the arguments and you'll do kind of the work. Right? I had his book. The good arguments are going to come from Richard Dean Winfield's book on American rights. But yeah, I mean, you're going to have to take Kyle Kalinske does no, he's not that guy. Look, man, I went to Kyle Kalinski's wedding. I think he's not there. Hassan Piker's not there. He's not there. Like these guys aren't deep enough. Nice enough, but President Jafar says, I knew Nick Fuentes way more than Charlie Kirk. He is way more popular among Gen Z. Fuentes is actually deeper. He's popular with the smarter people, right? Like Charlie Kirk might be your gateway. And then once you actually work with the arguments, you'll go to Fuentes because he's like more interesting and deeper, right? So that's going to be the problem. So he might have just been a kook who was radicalized by Fuentes and thought that Charlie Kirk was just in cahoots with Israel and wasn't ever going to change his mind in any reasonable way, and Nick Fuentes Nick Fuentes knows that if he's going to grow, he's going to have to cannibalize in some way Charlie Kirk's audience, so he'd go after Charlie Kirk. I actually appreciate that Nick Fuentes went after the right And I think it was good for the right. Yeah. So like Charlie Kirk and Steve Crowder, those guys are just like Cenk Uygur or Jimmy Dore for the right. They're not like, or Hassan Piker for the right. It's not someone who you have to worry about making a deeper argument. Fuentes is different because he actually gets at the ethical aspects in ways that the other guys don't. He can speak the moral talk in a way that the other guys don't. So he might have just been radicalized and had the skills because of his inadequate parents. And I know people are going to say, you know, his parents weren't inadequate. Well, first of all, it's kind of weird that his parents turned him in. His parents turned him in. I'm not turning in my kid. First of all, my kid's not shooting. I'm not teaching my kid how to take out someone from 200 yards and then be surprised when they do it. These parents are not great parents. His dad's a cop. Someone should have, they allowed him on the internet too much. My kids don't have unsupervised access to the internet. And that's appropriate because I'm a parent. I know these kinds of kids right now, the church is already proto, white supremacist. And then the parents off being nice while their kids getting radicalized and becoming whole white supremacists. And you're just not being a good enough parent. You teach them to shoot, you let them go on Reddit, and then you're surprised when you cook up an assassin. So, yeah. So, nice work, parents. You created a kook. So Welch's Grape says, I'm glad they turned him in because with no suspect, the right was free to imagine any leftist villain avatar. Well, yeah, the right is still telling you that it's a leftist. There is nothing left about this guy. If this isn't right-wing extremism, I don't know, you have to redefine right-wing. All this guy is right-wing. He's just, he killed Charlie Kirk from the right. By the way, if you appreciate what I'm doing, because I don't think anybody's making the Spook or Kook argument, he would be a spook because he's the exact right pedigree for the CIA to snap up, and they do snap up at 19. He is the exact right pedigree. And then he's a kook because he's also the exact right pedigree to get radicalized on the internet by Fuentes. And I say this, like I said, I saw it happen in the 80s and 90s by people who knew Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh in the 80s. Those kinds of people are attracted to Nick Fuentes now. Those kinds of 17, 18-year-olds are attracted to him now. No, his dad turned down the reward. He did it for the principal. So, these are not. There are lots of ways to be a bad parent. Tyler Robinson's parents are bad parents in a non-obvious way. It's your fault. You created this monster. And a lot of other parents are doing it too. They teach their kid to be white supremacists and then they let them go on the internet. It's kind of like ChatGPT, right? You program it thinking, well, I'll just program it to think like me. And then it goes on the internet and becomes racist in 10 days. These vaguely racist programmers program it and then it just becomes whole racist. So that's what his parents did to him. All right, how could you know that about Rush L in the 80s? You were just a kid. Yeah, exactly. The Mormons told me. I was a kid in the 80s. And you know who, the first person I heard talk about the Rush Limbaugh? The vaguely white supremacist Mormons. The vaguely white supremacist Mormons. And so those are the kids now, instead of Rush in the 80s, they're on Fuentes. This is before Rush got big. They're on Fuentes now before he gets big. Your debate bros they're not okay. And their parents don't even know. They're like nice kids, right? So Drew Kennedy, I was a child of the 90s too and knew about Rush very well too. He was ubiquitous. I went to a Christian private school in Central Florida. Yeah, by the 90s, the kids knew about Rush, but in the late 80s, only the kids in the know about Rush. But now all the kids in the know about Fuentes in the same way those kids who are proto-white supremacist, because we live in a proto-white supremacist culture, knew about Rush, right? So, yeah, that's the case for him being a kook. He's being a kook because, like, the LDS creates proto-white supremacist white nationalists, and then the internet finishes the job. Not 1 year at Utah, not one semester at Utah State studying pre-engineering. Now, the reason we don't have more kooks is usually these guys are either off at a mission or wifed up by now, and they're too busy doing that. But this guy got off the train, so he wasn't making enough money to attract a wife, so the order of operation was screwed up. But that's the usual plan for the Tyler Robinson, is that he still stays a white supremacist or whatever, but he goes, does his mission, then he comes back, gets married to someone who's been trained to be a comfort woman for people who come back for their mission. Then he's just too busy to get fully radicalized. And, he's got kids now, and then he's not going to go and throw his life away for Charlie Kirk. But there are a ton of people with his sensibility that are just too busy doing other things. And it turns out that Tyler Robinson had the time yesterday, or 2 days ago. He had the time. So that's what I think. Tyler Robinson might be a spook because Israel wins. It wins by tarring Nick Fuentes, and it wins by getting rid of Charlie Kirk prior to his turn on Israel. It's really convenient for Bibi. So this might be evidence of them being the chosen. Although there is a joke that might go with this. There's a joke that says, the Pope comes into the room and says, I got good news and I got bad news. And the Archbishop says, oh, what's the good news? And he's like, I got a call from the Almighty. And the Pope and the Archbishop says, hallelujah, you have a call from the Almighty? And then what could be the bad news? And the Pope says he's calling from Salt Lake City. Boom, boom, I'll be here all week. Utah. Did my stream freeze? If they're coming to get me. All right, I'm going to go. They're coming to get me. Go to www.funkyacademic.com. And if I go out, blame Israel first. Peace. Funkyacademic.com. Kick it in before they get rid of my banking.